Welcome YouTube. This is PC747 with the Next Up YouTube channel. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take this back plate off. Now to do that, there are four like small island head keys. Now I did end up using a toolkit for this, which I am going to highlight which bit that I used to open this up. But once you go ahead and remove all four of those screws, what I like to do as soon as I take the back cover off, I like to take the screws and put it right on top of the back cover. That way I know exactly where those screws came from for when I put it back together. The next thing you're going to want to do is you want to lift up. When I say lift up, because I actually was trying to push like literally upwards. But what you're actually going to want to do is take your tool and you want to go kind of underneath and kind of slightly pull the tab towards you. And when you do that, it's going to allow you to loosen up or remove the tab so that you can take out the bottom ribbon. Now, later in the video, you're going to see I removed the other two ribbons from the left and to the right. You did not have to do that. Why I did that was because I was actually struggling with getting the back cover, well, not the back cover, but getting the entire remote open. And I was like, feeling like something was hanging up. And so I removed literally everything to try to figure out what was hanging up. But you don't have to do that. All you got to do is worry about the center one and just remove that ribbon there. Now to note, even though I did lift the tab up, getting that cable to come out, it did take a little bit of pressure. Just if you're going to pull it, do not pull it from the bottom, kind of sort of pull it from the top. But just make sure that tab is completely out. It will loosen itself because literally that cable just slides in there and that tab just holds it in place. So if you do have a little issue with the cable coming out, don't feel like you're the only one. I literally had to kind of work its way out as well. Now, the next thing you're going to have, so your grip covers, literally you're going to have two grip covers, one on the left, one on the right. And then towards the bottom, you're going to have two little stops that's kind of rubber. You're going to want to go ahead and peel those off. Those are just held together like by some type of glue tape. So go ahead and peel that up so that you will reveal 4 screws. Now, to remove those screws, you're going to need like a jeweler screwdriver, a jeweler's Phillips. I say that because if you try to use either the Phillips that come with this toolkit, it's not long enough to get to the one in the bottom. And if you try to use a regular Phillips, it's too thick and it won't fit in the holes. So a jeweler screwdriver will be best suited. Thankfully, for one of my old toy drone kits that I had, they had a really, really thin Phillips screwdriver that would actually fit into that hole. So that's what I end up having to use to take out those screws. Now, once you use that Phillips screwdriver, you'll be able to loosen all 4 of the screws. You know, maybe the 2 on the bottom, stoppers, and you're going to have, again, one for the left gripper and the other one for the right gripper. So take out those Phillips screws and we'll move on to the next step. Now, once you get those screws out, the next step you're going to have to do is, that's pretty much all it's holding. It's literally separating the top from the bottom. Now, be careful because you do have a ribbon cable. Well, not a ribbon cable, but like a cable that's in there that's connecting the bottom part to the top one. But once you get those screws out, you're literally going to have to separate the case. Now, separating the case actually took me a while. This is what I kept saying was I thought something was hanging up because I was using a couple of pry tools and several other things. And it's like I can get the left side loose, the right side loose. Anyway, something was snagging up. And because of that, I thought maybe something else was catching. So you would actually see in a video where I literally took more stuff apart than I needed to. I started taking the phone grip. I took that off the remote. I ended up removing the other 2 ribbons and the the PC board. So I end up removing extra things that I did not have to remove. And I'm telling you that because I'm letting you know, you do not have to remove that. Once I actually separated it and finally did get it separated, I realized that, okay, yeah, I didn't have to remove those. And I actually saw in other videos where people didn't remove that, but I'm like, there has to be something snagging that I may be missing. And it was just hard to get it to come apart. So yeah, when you actually get to this part to try to separate the case, if you start to feel like something's snagging and you like, man, something's breaking or something's not catching right, hey, don't feel bad because I had the same issue. I had to literally keep working it. And in fact, a couple of the plastic pry tools that came with this kit that I was using to try to get it to separate, I ended up literally damaging it because, yeah, that case was literally put together and it was on there. It was on there pretty tight. So I was sitting there literally struggling to get this thing to come apart. But I finally was able to get the top piece to separate from the bottom piece. And when I was able to, again, you do have the wire. Now, the wire is somewhat long enough where I don't think you would have broke anything, but still be mindful when you separate it just so that you don't have that. Now, once you get the top part separate from the bottom part, you're going to separate that cable. And once you unplug it, I think it's recommended to leave it out for 30 seconds, but I left it out for about maybe a minute or so once I finally got it to disconnect from itself. And again, when I had to take it apart, literally you have a tab which you gotta have to push in and lift up. So don't pull on that tab, just push in and it will come up. You actually will see in a video here where I'm pushing on it, you can see how the clamp works. Now again, once you get it out, leave it separated. Like I said, I leave it out for about a couple of minutes. You know, literally have it apart. I'll probably use that time if I have like a some compressed air to clean out the inside, make sure nothing else is dusty or damaged. Use that time for that. And then once that is said and done, I'll go ahead and plug the cable back in. Once the cables are plugged back in, the next thing I'm going to do is to go ahead and push the top piece and bottom piece of the remote back together. And then I'll start installing the screws that I took out, starting with the ones on the left grip, the right grip, and the bottom. Now, when I installed the screws, what I ended up doing was kind of doing like a star pattern. And just so that you will see, these screws are the same size, but I would do like the star pattern where I get it started at one of the bottom, at the bottom left, then or bottom right, either way you want to do it, because there's no particular way you got to put it. Then I get started top left and then top right. So basically, I'm tightening in the star pattern. The reason why I do that is, you know, just so to make sure it kind of tightens up correctly, don't snag up, and also helps to prevent from cross-threading any screws. So yeah, definitely install that kind of in the star pattern to get that going. Now, one thing that I did fail to show you, which I should have from the beginning, is that I like to actually recommend go ahead and make sure the cable is all the way through there and it's actually plugged in and connected. So make sure the cable is connected back to the motherboard and the motherboard is tightened down properly before you put the screws in there. Last thing you want to do is connect the case and realize the ribbon cable is still stuck inside, and you got to pull the case back apart. So definitely make sure that ribbon cable for the board is actually plugged in. I kept calling the motherboard, but the PC board. Next step, once you get all your screws in for your grip case or for where the grippers were at, you're going to want to go ahead and put the back plate back on and again tighten the screws for that. Now, after you tighten all the screws for the back plate, you reinstall the grips, which, by the way, the grips, as long as your whatever tape that is, that adhesive tape is still sticky, it'll still hold and you'll be able to install that just fine without any problem. If not, you'll probably have to grab some more adhesive tape. Now for me, I found that it was still tacky, and I was able to reinstall the grip. Now, another thing, on the bottom, when you get to installing the bottom stoppers, there's actually a little slot. Just make sure when you go to install that grip, you actually fit it in that slot, which you will see is done right here. Now for me, because it had been a couple years since I used my drone, my remote was literally completely dead. So what I ended up having to do was go ahead and start plugging in to allow the remote and a battery for the drone to start charging up. Now you'll see the light start blinking. At first I'm like, okay, is anything happening? And as I continued to allow it to charge up and sit back and relax, I noticed that the remote was starting to charge up. And eventually I was able to turn on my drone remote and my drone started working. Now, hopefully you find this helpful in helping you to take apart your DJI Phantom remote and reset it in the case that your remote just stopped working, because that literally is what you're doing. If you are unable to use your drone remote because it's not turning on, it's not working, yeah, just doing a simple reset like that will help it work just fine. So my channels have been heavily on tech, and over the years, I've been working on trying to review tech, kind of feel where I fit in this space, trying to find something that worked for me. But recently, so my actual job, I actually work as an aircraft mechanic for a regional airline. Now, I'm not going to say the regional airline, but, it wouldn't be hard to kind of figure that out. Now, as a result of some things that has transpired, with the COVID-19 and how the airlines has been responding, it's put me in kind of a very, very tough predicament as far as, what's going to happen after October 1st, or how long this airline will be continuing going on. And being that, it really forced me to do a number of things. Obviously, prepare for, what's next, obviously to be prepared for worst case scenarios. And leading up to that, it led me into kind of a whole different dynamic, where a year ago I was spending money, going to conventions for 5G and other things like that because I had it. This year to put me in a totally different, atmosphere. Now it's like I'm trying to conserve money any way that I can. And that's led to different type of videos for me. Where before I'm just looking to talk about some of the latest high-end smartphones. And, during this time, normally I'll be talking about the Pixels and the iPhones and the Notes. Unfortunately, I really, haven't had the time to dig into all those because I've been on this crazy schedule where, I was flying back and forth between Atlanta and Houston for work to work at a facility as a way to separate us because of COVID-19. And that literally kicked off right when COVID kicked off, so right around March. And I've been so busy with that, and that threw me off schedule so much to where it really changed where I was trying to make a video once a week to, man, I'd be lucky if I was able to get 2 videos in a month. So that was one area that I had to deal with. Another area that really was a big deal of what was going on was just trying to figure out before how this COVID thing is going to shake out. And, at the time I was like, all right, I was hoping for the best, but, I was also preparing for the worst. And, when it was announced that the worst likely will be happening, it's like, all right, now I gotta definitely, buckle down and just be real smart with money. And like the last couple of videos that I've done reflected that. That is why I did a video before talking about how to save money, because when YouTube TV went up to $65, I'm like, man, there's no way that I can justify spending that in my budget. So I actually had to find a way to cut that out of my budget. So literally the last couple of videos I made are real world scenario videos that I myself is having to use. YouTube TV had to go. I can't justify $65 a month. Not anymore. So literally my YouTube TV subscription has been suspended. And I'm relying on, the rabbit ears and some of the things that I actually showed you guys in the last video to try to still enjoy some content when I can. But I'm just not going to, hurt my budget. I had to find ways to save money. And even though I'm already have kind of been pretty much on a strict budget anyway, because I was trying to get my emergency fund up after, finishing up baby step 2. Now, anyone not familiar with the baby steps, I've been doing the whole Dave Ramsey thing for a couple of years, and I had just paid off my final debt this year, and I was working on getting a 6-month emergency fund. Now, to be honest with you, I wasn't gazelle intense. In fact, that's one of the things I do regret is that I wasn't. I was kind of skipping along. Now, yeah, I got that debt, but had I been gazelle intense, I would have at least 6 months emergency funds. It would make my whole outlook on this, what's going on, a little bit less comforting. Because to have 6 months of all your funds saved up in the bank and you're not stressed out whether you got to pay bills or not, that gives you a little bit more leeway and a little bit more time to be more calculated with risk. Do I got to rush to do this job now, or can I use this time to experiment other things? It would have gave me a lot more leeway, and I would have felt a lot more comfortable. Now, this is, one of my never again moments. And when I say never again moments, what are the things that having or going through hard times can produce is that moment where you say, this is not going to happen again. And for me, that never again moment is, man, I got to have a 6 to 12 months emergency fund in place. Because if something happened like this, to have 6 to 12 months of your funds saved up in a bank that can handle your day to day and give you time to navigate through this. One, it just makes things feel a little bit less stressful. And two, think about it. If your bills are covered for 6 to 12 months, like literally in the bank, most scenarios, like even COVID, something like that, you will still be able to handle your bills, and within hopefully 6 months, whatever issue you're dealing with, it works its way out. You're able to recover whatever job, or you're able to do whatever training and find a career or a job that you want to do. Especially if you're going through a period like, man, I wonder if I want to do this anymore. And you will have the funds and the ability to actually pursue other things and not be stressed out. So yeah, these are some real world things that I've been obviously dealing with. Now I know, like I said, this is a tech channel, but I also like being real too, because I know that there are a number of people like me who are dealing with this right now, trying to figure out what's next. Especially if you've been a part of a career for, let's say, 10 plus years. And now that career move is just hitting that wall right now. And you're sitting back asking the question, do I want to do this anymore? Or do I want to pursue something else? To have all your debt paid off in a 6 to 12 months emergency fund gives you more time to think that out and not rush. It gives you more room to play with. And for me, that's why I say I wish I was more gazelle intense and focus on that. Now, today's video will definitely be along that lines, as I had a DJI Phantom 3 drone. Now, I was able to get this thing for a steal. And I say a steal, I was able to buy it from someone for like a very, very cheap price because they didn't want it anymore. Now, unfortunately, it stopped working. And I couldn't figure out why. And then I saw this YouTube video that explained a way that you could solve the problem. So the issue I was having was my remote wasn't charging or wasn't coming on. And because of that, my drone just sat up in a closet for months. And really, let's be honest, years, since the last time I flew that drone. And I decided to say, hey, why not repair it right now? Let's see if I can actually do it. So I went on Amazon, picked up a $17 toolkit, and opened up the battery, or the remote, to reset it. And this video is actually going to go over the steps I did to do that. And the reason for that, because this may actually benefit someone out there for one of two reasons. One, you may have a drone that just stopped working, and you may decide to say, hey man, if I can reset this and get it working, I just save money. And I didn't have to spend extra money going somewhere else to do it. But here's another reason. Let's just say you're someone thinking about, man, I really want to try out doing drone photography or getting into drones. And I may want to look at this as a career. And I know that you can do that as a career because I know someone who have actually done it. And, shout out to Drone Wolf Media. Drone Wolf over there. I remember when he first started his business and he decided he wanted to start flying drones and the way he stepped out and said, hey, this is what I want to do. And he made a lot of sacrifices to make that happen. And, I'm definitely been, talking with him about, man, what does it feel like to start your own business and all that other stuff? Because, that is something that in the back of my mind, I'm like, man, I may even think about pursuing myself. Now, not particularly maybe the drone side of it, but just being able to start my own business and be able to make it profitable. But if you're someone out there like, man, I'm thinking about starting my own drone business, but I don't have the money to go out there and buy a $500+ drone. You may be able to run into like a pawn shop or online somewhere, maybe Craigslist, and you may find a person selling their drone for cheap because they're having the same problem. And you may be literally pick up a drone for pennies on a dollar, and by doing this step, get it working, and now you walking around with pretty much a decent drone that you pay literally nothing for. So hopefully this do help someone out with that. I just want to take this time and to kind of continue to encourage people like myself that are going through a period like this to find ways to save money. And I do highly recommend you definitely look at your budget and find ways to get unnecessary expenses out. And, for me, so far, I was able to cut out $75 worth of expenses out of my budget between dropping YouTube TV and Stadia. I'm still digging in my budget, trying to find other things I can drop. I'm thinking about also looking at maybe possibly Netflix, getting that out of there. Just finding any way that I can just get my budget to bare minimum and, just nickel and diming until we get back to where, well, I say normal and not the current COVID normal that we're going through now. Because there's going to be a ripple effect, I feel like, where a lot of businesses, is going to feel that at their particular time. When COVID first kicked off, I know a number of businesses, especially like the automobile business, my brothers in that, they went through their period where they were laying off, furloughing their employees, and now they're calling them back. And right now the travel industry is definitely about to go through their period, and we don't know who all was going to feel that. You definitely had also a lot of people in the restaurant businesses dealing with that, brick and mortars that kind of felt it. So there are a number of companies and industries out there that had to deal with it and may deal with some of the ripple effects afterwards. So hopefully these videos that I put out going forward will find ways to help you save money, find ways to make the most out of your situation, especially involving tech. So that is the purpose of my videos going forward. Now, again, I'm hoping to be able to be more consistent with putting out my content, but like everyone else that's going through this period, there are more pressing issues that are taking, let's say, center stage right now. For one, obviously, job search is going to definitely be at the top. I'm still able to work, so definitely got to be there and do my job there. While we still are have the doors open and saving up money, and also any way that I can find to educate myself in any way, whether it be reading up on sales or insurance or drone. I'm literally doing everything I can to maximize my time to just read up and read and look into businesses and look at every possible avenue and use this time that is given to me to hopefully be able to put myself in a better position going forward.